Okay, hello. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Nice to see you all. Okay, so today we're talking about how AI is changing late stage go-to-market. Okay, you gotta adopt it or get left behind. We've got Jane Alexander from CapitalG. We've got Vanessa Larco from Premise. We've got Nirav Tolia from Nextdoor here to give you the deets. So we're hearing a lot about how AI is changing go-to-market, especially for late stage. What are you actually seeing?
You want to start with the person actually leading go-to-market?
I'm the only one who has to see things because I'm trying to run a company. They just get to give advice. I have to take the advice. So the advice I'm taking is that AI adoption is inescapable.
Yes.
So whether you're a seed stage startup or whether you're a public company like Nextdoor, if you don't embrace AI and think about all of the different ways that you could be using it, I'm pretty sure you're going to be left behind. And so I know the term tends to be overhyped. I believe that expression that we hear in Silicon Valley a lot, which is in the early days, things get overhyped, but in the long term, we tend to underestimate the impact. I think that will be true of AI. So I'm a true believer in it. I think if you don't have a great AI strategy and then the expertise to implement that strategy, you're in risk of being disrupted.
Okay. But very tactically, though, I think there's two things. When people think of AI, they think, oh, I'm going to automate everything. And then other people think of like, oh, it's great for unstructured data. Now I can make use of that data. What I found is, yes, it helps with unstructured data. You can now say, we were just talking about the bug reports, right? You can go through what people are reporting or the description of the feature requests and mine that in a way that was only available when you had very structured data. So that's like unlocking a ton of better insights and better decision making. On the automation piece, I think it's overhyped and it's not really working. And it's basically like giving an intern a list of instructions. You have to supervise it all the way through. And then most of the time it's not what you wanted and you have to redo the work. And then you ask yourself, why in the world did I do it this way?
Yes.
100, I couldn't agree with that more. I think where I have seen folks go wrong with this is when they say, great, AI is here, let it replace my BDRs, let it replace my AI, my AEs. I no longer need humans. AI is going to do it all. It knows everything. Where I see people doing this well is maybe 3 specific examples I can share. And this last summer, we led an investment in Clay, which is a kind of a go-to-market automation tool. So huge credit to the companies that are using Clay that are giving me these examples. The first example of when I think people are doing this well is when they use it to have more creative go-to-market strategies than they could have otherwise, something that couldn't scale with humans. So the example here would be Canva. Canva has a tool that allows you to ensure things are on brand. And so what they do using AI, using Clay specifically, is they go out and they look at brands' public presence. They look at their LinkedIn or their Twitter. They check if that is on brand using LLMs. And if it is not, they automate an email to that prospect saying, hey, this specific tweet is off brand for you. We can help with that.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool.
I just saw an ad for this, actually. It was like a witch walking around saying, on brand, on brand, on brand.
Yeah,
It's a Canva thing, right?
That's totally it. And then maybe the second thing that we see people do well is when they look at their best reps. They're not trying to automate reps, but they look at the best people. Like we all know the reps that are hitting 200% of quota. And they automate just what those people do. This is what OpenAI is doing using Clay. They follow their best reps, see what research they do, and then automate that research for the rest. And then finally is like you were talking about if there's a way for like data aggregation, that's very helpful. Rippling as an example sends a bunch of mailers, like physical mail, and they get the addresses wrong a lot because it's really hard to find local addresses. They use AI through Clay to tap into Google Maps and verify their addresses before they send it out. So just 3 like categories with specific examples of where it's going better, but humans always in the loop.
Yeah. You know, something that I thought was interesting that we talked about in our prep call was about hyper-personalization, right? Whether that's in the way that you're reaching out to specific clients or whether it's advertising and marketing.
Yeah. You probably have a great perspective on this.
Yeah, the hyper-personalization is helpful. I do think that because it's already becoming mainstream, I think when you're thinking of go-to-market, when you're trying to reach an end customer, you're trying to do something that no one else has done because you want to stand out.
Right.
And you want to get to the top of the inbox.
You get viral.
Yeah, and then like the minute it works, everyone else copies it and then it stops working. And so I think where AI helps is when you find something that works, you can run way harder at that and you can get further along than when by the time someone else copies you and it becomes a flooded channel or a mature channel, then you have to switch to the next thing. It doesn't necessarily help you find the thing that'll convert, because the minute it does, it stops working. So I still think the creativity does have to come from people. It can help you optimize around the edges so that you can be much more efficient with your spend, and you just explained how Rippling has done one thing to make it more efficient around spend. But I still think a lot of the creative ideas or things that will like spark excitement or unexpectedness, it still comes from people.
Right.
Definitely.
So like AI is taking some of the drudgery, right, so that you can, this is the promise, right? It takes the drudgery so that you can have more time to be more creative.
But not all the drudgery,
But not
unfortunately.
all the drudgery, unfortunately.
There's still a lot of drudgery.
And there's probably a lot of drudgery just trying to get AI implemented in your business, right? I mean, Nirav, what are you seeing? Because you have like a very unique, Nextdoor has, you have kind of the what do we say backstage? B to C, right? You have
B to B to C.
B to B to C.
So a marketplace between neighbors, and then the neighbors connecting with small businesses and customers as well. But to kind of take a step back, I think it's a little overhyped to say that AI is going to replace things.
Right.
I like to think of AI as a leveraged tool to help you get to the right answer much faster, or with fewer people or less time. So if the entire organization is thinking about AI as something that will help them do a better job, that tends to be less fear-mongering and more pleasure-seeking, where you say, yeah, I'd like any tool you can give me to make my job or my output better. And that's the way I think we should think about AI. The same way that we think about technology, generally speaking. Why do we use technology? Because it helps us do our job better. Now, from a company standpoint, I'll give you a framework just in terms of thinking about companies and how to deploy AI if you are not an AI native company. So we see most of the new companies today, you don't have to tell them how to deploy AI or the importance of AI because they grow up that way. But if you're a company like Nextdoor, 14 years old, public company, right? A little long in the tooth for our industry, right? How do we reinvent ourselves using AI? And we tend to think about it in three ways. So the first is, how can you use AI to help your employee base work more productively? That's all of the AI tools, and we happen to use the Google suite of products, so using Gemini or using a third-party agent like Glean to really help us get to answers more quickly internally to make our internal processes better. So that's one bucket. The second bucket is the obvious one, which is around support. So whether it's support in our case for our users who use Nextdoor for free, or our customers who are actually buying advertising on Nextdoor, we can use AI to either get the feedback faster and then act on it, or to create more personalized outreach to them the way that you all were talking about it, right? The third and final bucket for us is, how can you use AI to make a better consumer product? And that's where you tend to look at all of the unstructured data and you say, okay, if the search is not working that great, can you now use AI to take all of that unstructured data and summarize it in a way that it can be instantly actionable?
Right.
And so we need to push on all three of those things, because we really can make all of them better, both from an output standpoint and from a unit economic standpoint, by leveraging AI.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like, Nextdoor is in the middle of a turnaround, right? So you've recently rejoined the company. You guys are already public, but have been suffering on the stock market. Really need to like boost the company. AI is probably going to help you do that. Late stage, often you've got the maturity already. You've got a lot of the customer base. You just need to like double down, hone in. But now you're in a position where you have to find ways to reacquire customers, right? So like, I want to hear just a little bit more about like, is there any specific tool that you've used that's been really helpful, or are you building something internally that's going to be helpful, or?
It's all of the above, and I'm sure these two extremely smart investors can give me better advice than what I'm doing myself. But just quickly, we were talking backstage about a tool that we use called Interpret, which is a way for us to take all of the user feedback that we receive, whether it's through bug reports, quantitative surveys that we're running, or qualitative feedback when people write into our customer service, and put all of those into a kind of story that our product managers can then use to understand along the user journey, where are we falling short? Now, we wouldn't be in the middle of a transformation or a turnaround if our product were perfect.
Right.
And so we need to do whatever we can to create a better Nextdoor product. And Interpret is one of the tools that we can use to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like deep empathy, because the expectations of consumers has step function changed in such a short. We've never seen anything like this. We have never seen consumer preferences change so quickly. And now, even for myself, I expect search not to give me, search results. I expect search to not just search, but give me the synthesis of all the information that it's found and give me a synopsis so that I don't have to reach the conclusion myself by reading every single thing. It can just do it for me, and that happened really fast.
Yeah, I think we're entering a world where first with Uber and Uber Eats and all the delivery services, you would pull out your phone, you'd push a button, and you'd get what you were looking for. AI does that for information.
Right.
So that didn't work for information. Before, we'd go to Google, we'd type in a query, we'd see all of the results, we'd click on a couple, we'd go back, we'd click on the other one, right? Now we go to the agentic interfaces, we ask a natural language question, and we get one answer. Right? So that idea of pushing a button and getting exactly what you need back without any hops in the middle, that's the consumer expectation. If it's not there today, it will be there pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult because the consumer internet in particular, consumer internet has been about what part of the series of things that a consumer is doing do you own? Do you own the beginning? Do you own the end? Or are you somewhere in the middle? Right? You think about all these marketplaces. Consumers aren't going to think about that in the future. They're not going to want to go to Google and then go somewhere else. They're going to go to one place and they want the answer. They want the end point at the starting point. And that's a big thing. That's going to be a big challenge for companies.
That's not, I mean, you think they're only going to go to one place, then are you trying to get acquired, or?
I think you need to have something unique that would draw consumers to you versus answering their question with Google, whatever its AI search ends up being, ChatGPT, et cetera. So I do think that if you are a broker of information and you're used to consumers finding that information inside a search engine, you will have a pretty difficult road to hoe.
And I think that we're seeing that, like, not just consumers, but obviously also employees. They want this type of, kind of instant gratification, like, I need the information now when I need it. Vanessa, you've talked about how you don't think that on a grander scale implementing AI has been great or like even useful, but on an individual level, people are kind of using their own little agents and making their own lives easier.
I think we're really close to nailing it on the single player AI use case. I think we are so far away from the multiplayer AI use case, where like a whole team is interacting with it in a way that we would think of interacting with Slack. Like all of our teams are enabled, we're all on the same Slack channels, all the information's pretty consistent, we all know the framework and what to expect when we go into Slack. I think when we're using AI tools, it's my companion, it's my co-pilot, it's my facilitator, but not necessarily for my entire team. We haven't quite figured that out. And the truth is, partially it's a tech issue, but more predominantly, it's a change management issue.
Oh, yeah.
It's what we talked about. It's that a lot of companies don't actually know their processes of how teams work. So how are you going to implement an AI to facilitate the workflow and automate it if you yourself don't know how your teams are working?
So much is just in your head, right? It's just like, I know how to do this thing and I do it, but like what, I have to take the time out of my already busy schedule to try to teach an AI how to do this thing? Like, Jane, you've talked about this to me. You've talked about the change management as well. You've talked about how there's now a thing called a GTM engineer. Like, when we're talking about late-stage companies, again, so many of them are not AI native. There's so much overhaul they have to do. They need to reorganize. They need to fire a bunch of people and hire a bunch of people. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think maybe bringing it back to two things to say on this. The first is that even if we implement it great and we make it work, the bad news is a new thing will come. Like the only thing that is certain is that you will not be done. There is no Everest that you will summit and then not have to do this again. You said there's a diminishing return. Once you find that next strategy, there's a diminishing return on it. And that has always been true. That's true of display ads, of classic search ads, of social media, of email, of webinars. Everything you can think of started excellent, and as the masses caught on, got worse. So the only thing that we can count on to be true for an enduring period of time during this AI wave is that you can't just do it once. You're not going to implement one AI strategy for email, or you're not going to solve GEO once. You're going to have to keep doing something that is novel and unique and differentiated. And so my push would be, rather than thinking about how to implement one strategy, I would think about how to build a system that allows you to continue to innovate and find out what works and push on it.
Yeah.
Who is that person that does that? Is that the CEO? Do you hire someone specifically to be the finger on the pulse person?
That leads to the change that we're seeing in go-to-market organizations. Is it used to be, in my background, I used to be a sales leader at Salesforce, and then I was a CMO at a company called Carta. And what we used to do in pre-AI world is you would have hundreds of sales reps with an outreach account. And they would decide what they were going to email people on their own. Chad was deciding it, and Jamie was deciding it, and everybody had their own. And reps would look at each other, and they would say, oh, I like your email. You get good results. OK, I'll copy it. That was very distributed. What I think we will see, what we're starting to see in some of the most innovative organizations, is that innovation engine starts to centralize. So instead of having 200 people make up their own emails that are kind of marginally better than the other one, you have a go-to-market engineering team that says, hey, we're going to test this for this audience. We're going to experiment with that, and we're going to push it out using scaled systems. And so that's what we're seeing, how it translate into the organization change. Maybe it's the CEO. You probably have phenomenal ideas you should put through.
You have to lead by example, whether you're the CEO or one of the executives or right on down the line. If you're telling your teams to use AI, but you're not using AI, then it just doesn't work, right? You have to actually bring them the use cases. So I had our head of people probably about a year ago come to me and say, you're not spending enough time with AI. You should literally have blocks on your calendar every single week where you're just trying out different agents. And so ultimately, he came up with a pretty interesting set of things that we would do internally. The first was about education. So we ran lots of different workshops where we exposed people to AI, right? Because these are people who need to be upskilled. I mean, interestingly, I think AI inside companies should reside in the people team, because the people team is about upskilling and ensuring that all of the employees are doing the best work they can. And learning to use AI is an upskill. So you start with that education. You then start to celebrate examples. So if you're in a culture that's all about building things, whether it's consumer things or enterprise things, you typically have once a week some kind of demo thing. We call it prod dev demos, right? What if you had some time devoted every week to demoing ways that people are using AI? That's examples. And then the third final thing, if you really want to get to excellence, we have this concept of HR business partners. You've probably heard of it because it's now pretty standard in the industry. What if we had AI business partners? What if we had a number of people internally whose job it was to follow all of the latest things that are happening in the world of AI? Because to the earlier point, there's always something new, there's always something better, and if your job is to keep track of all of those things and then go and teach those things to various teams, that's where I think ultimately you can get a lot of leverage.
Yeah. One of my portfolio companies did an interesting thing where they're now at the board meetings, they want to bring in whoever created the most interesting AI implementation or AI agent for their team comes to the board and gets to present it. And so they have these hackathons, I think it's every quarter, where every team gets a day where they get to implement. And they've all standardized on an AI agent platform, so the whole company's using the same one. But then they get to demo it, and it's a big deal. For the board, it's great to see, the last one was a customer success manager built an agent and explained how they were gonna run their QBR things with their customers. To pull the research and prioritize and all the things. And I just think it's a really good way to show we really care, and it's a way to bubble up to the board. Every corner of my business is thinking about how to bring AI into it. And most of the people that present are not technical.
Yeah.
Right.
They are not engineers.
Hackathons, I think, are a phenomenal way to get at this. And when entering that, I find myself, I'm definitely a laggard in this, so if anyone feels that way, I'm with you. And the reason I find myself getting stuck is I'm so limited by the tool set that I am used to.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to think outside of what could I do with the tools that I have. And so I was talking to somebody, I probably can't share this. I was talking to somebody at a major consumer
Sure you
brand.
can.
Yeah. I was talking to someone from a major consumer brand that was trying to figure out how to use AI. And I was like, okay, well, what are your business problems? Don't talk to me about how they started oh, I might be able to use AI to refine my, targeted ad messaging or use the company name instead of, no. You're thinking way too small. You're
Right.
thinking in the context of the prior tools. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And she said, I need to figure out what products to stock in my European stores, which are franchise run. And I don't know how to tell them. I'm like, excellent. what do you look at to figure that out? She's like, home prices, what our competitors are doing, et cetera. I'm like, perfect. You can use AI for that.
Right.
Because you can use AI to systematically go crawl what home prices are doing and what the trend is. You can even use it to analyze, is that going up or is it going down? You can analyze other, whatever, demographic changes in a neighborhood. You can do all of that. But the unlock, at least for me, has been, like, stop thinking about the tool set that we've had previously and just think about, like, in a perfect world, what could I do? And maybe you won't get all the way there, but you're going to get closer than if you start.
By the way, a great hack on that is to ask AI the best ways to use AI in your company. So you can feed any of these agents a ton of information about your company without telling it your processes, and then you can start to ask questions like, what do you think are our greatest risks? What are our greatest opportunities? And then you can say, how do we use AI to mitigate the risks or to take advantage of the opportunities, right? I think what people forget about AI is you have to use it. Like, the prompt is everything.
Yeah.
And the only way to really understand the best prompt is to teach yourself how to get the best prompts, right? And so people get stuck because they think, oh, I've done it this way all along, right? But imagine if you were sitting next to a human and you could ask that human how to do all of these things. The first step is to treat the AI like it's that person,
Right.
and just start asking questions. Because people get stuck because they don't want to ask questions. They want to think of the answer.
Right.
How am I going to use AI to make my life better?
We've been
right?
trained to do that, right? Because for our generation, it was all about learning how to use keyword search. And I
Yes.
remember, like, my teachers in high school would be like, oh, no one's going to pay you to know how to Google things. Well, you need to learn
No,
how to go to
they
the
will, yeah.
library and pick a book. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure someone's going to pay me to be really good at Googling.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wrong. But now we have to retrain ourselves. Now I remember, like, for me, I try to put in the shortest thing. And I'm like, no, the longer the prompt, the better. I have to undo everything I've been
Yeah,
taught.
no keywords. We're not about the keywords. We are detailed people. Yes.
I know, and I'm so not used. I've been, like, trained to be really good at keyword search.
Yeah.
And now I have to be trained to be good at long form
Well,
prompting.
how are you, like, so you mentioned that you block out an hour every day. Not everyone can do. I spoke to I'm pretty sure I spoke to a founder. For the life of me, I cannot remember who this was, or a CEO who said, it's not my responsibility to block off time on my employees' calendar or to help them upskill. Like, do that in your own time, figure it out. Like, this is sink or swim, baby. So, like, what do you think? Like, are you providing the tools, or what do you want to see in your portfolio companies? Do you want to see them provide the tools to their employees to learn how to do this? Or is it like, this is the Hunger Games? Like,
There's not enough talent that knows how to do this, to do Hunger. I'm like, fine, Hunger Games. If that's your vibe and you want to, like, pit everyone against each other, fine. But the problem is there's not a huge talent pool yet that knows how to do this natively. You're very talent constrained. So if you want to do Hunger Games, be like, okay, fine, you're fired. I'll just hire someone else. A, be prepared for that search to take forever. Or B, be prepared to pay through the nose for that person that does know how to do it well. So it's up to you. Like, Hunger Games, fine, but it's going to cost you a lot of money.
yeah.
And then something I think is, like, so easy just to help people get started is, I think people are nervous to start because they're like, I don't even know what this means. Like,
Right.
and a lot of people, when they encounter that feeling, just don't even want to ask questions anymore. They're
Yeah.
embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so one thing we built for another one of our portfolio companies is we just used a bunch of the, like, Google, Gemini, DeepMind internal coursework, and we just made a, like, LLMs 101 course for one of our portfolio companies. It's super simple. It's some videos, some text. Take it at your own pace. But it just is like a starter. And you can do it on your own. You don't need it to be supplied for you. Just ask AI, probably.
Yeah.
But I think, like, understanding how things work is, this is amazing, transformative technology. I'm not saying anything that it is not. But also, you can understand it. Like, every single person in our companies can get the fundamentals of how this works
Yeah.
if it is explained to you. It is not one of those things, it's not finance, you know? It's like normal. We can
Right.
figure this out, all of us.
I do want to plug really quick. I actually wrote about a company who's here at the battlefield stage called Campus AI. They're doing this. They have a whole course load for people who are non-technical and want to learn AI. So check them out.
That's awesome.
Okay, so you talked about, like, building a product. Like, how do you determine whether to build internally, or, you know, there's like a million AI startups with like 5, you know, engineers saying that we can give us all your data and we'll, you know, like, it can't always be secure. You know, what if it breaks, right? Like, how do you, you know, balance the risk, build versus buy?
Compute is very expensive. So, I mean, the notion of kind of old Silicon Valley startups where you would do it all yourself because you could do it more cheaply than the big companies, that's actually been inverted. And so in the very early days of AI, you had many people building their own LLMs and then starting to train those LLMs, and you realized pretty quickly that compute was so expensive that it was just better for you to buy a subscription to OpenAI or on Gemini or whatever platform you wanted to use. So I think it's more about, I don't worry so much about my data being shared with someone. I worry more about, can I get the best outcomes from the AI software that's off the shelf, or is it something that I need to tune internally? What we found is for our consumer product, there really isn't anything off the shelf that we can just plug in to make our consumer product better. That's AI that we have to build ourselves. But when it comes to support or when it comes to making go-to-market motions more efficient, there are companies that think about this 24/7 that have built it from the ground up, AI native, and they are amazing companies, and it's very affordable.
Right.
It's actually more affordable, frankly, than trying to build it internally. So if it's core, you probably should own it. If it's something that's just going to help you refine your core, it's probably something you can rent.
Yeah, but you do want to be careful. I heard from the Wiz CTO, he told me, if they don't have a CISO, that's a problem, okay? Just pay attention.
Agree with that.
Yeah.
I would say the thing that people forget in this, we've always had this question, do I build this or buy this? Now it's just exacerbated with AI. The people often forget is not just the cost to build, but the cost to maintain.
Yes.
And when you're buying something off the shelf, you are buying, like if you're buying, for example, clay, you are buying a team of hundreds of people that are maniacally focused every single day on making the best possible go-to-market AI tool for you. If you're going to staff hundreds of people that maniacally think about that, build it. But if you're going to staff 5 engineers who kind of build it and then move on to the next thing, you're probably not going to get the best product.
We had this was like the same talk track when AWS became really big and popular, and everyone's like, I could build Zendesk on my own. I don't need to buy Zendesk. I could build Box on my own. I don't need to buy Box.
Totally.
And what we learned from that was like, okay, yeah, you're going to build it, but who's going to deal with the bugs and the feature requests and support your team when they have questions? Like, you're not going to want to do that. Your team's going to move on to build the next thing, and then everyone's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
So it's the same story, just now with AI instead of cloud.
Now, we have only a couple minutes left, but we said something backstage that I thought one of you said this. I can't remember who. But if you don't have an AI story, you can't go public. This is the going public stage, right?
Yeah.
Is that you, Vanessa?
Yeah.
Quotable. Amazing. We talked about the upside. Like, does this accelerate the path to IPO? How does this help you get to the public markets?
Well, if you wanted to accelerate your path to going public, you have to show how the application of AI is driving some set of business results, right? And whether that's generating revenue better or whether that's saving money, that's something that's actually black and white. I think there's another side of it, which is the objection handler, which is you're going to get the question, in a world dominated by AI, what is your strategy? How are you going to compete? How are you going to make sure that there aren't 3 people in a garage that are going to build some AI app that's going to put you out of business? And so I think it's 2 things. One is, how can you leverage AI to make a good business great? And if you can do that, particularly today, right, that's a magic formula for going public, because they see it and they think, oh man, we're in the early innings of AI. If they're using it now, just imagine what's going to happen, right? But there's the flip side of it, which is in a world where everyone's using AI to its fullest capabilities, if you're not, how are you going to survive?
Yeah.
So you got to think about both of those.
Yeah, I think that it's equally as likely to prevent you from going public than it is to facilitate. I don't know if it facilitates. I think it will likely be like part of your story and you can keep on the track you've been going, or it'll delay you because you're going to have to show how your new strategy encompasses, and you're going to want to show traction with that AI strategy before you go public.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you can be doing all these things, but like, is it generating revenue?
Yeah.
Do you have traction because of it, or are you just like running around like a chicken with your head cut off?
That's the only thing I'd add to these perfect answers is like using the word strategy as opposed to the word story, I think is the key difference. If you have a story that is not true in the business, public market analysts are very smart people. They spend a lot of time on this. If you have a strategy that is true in the business, to your point, that will shine through, and so will just a story.
And it's a requirement at this point.
Awesome.
It's not like a nice to have.
Yeah, this is a need to have. Awesome. Okay, well, hey, thank you all for joining. Thank you for listening. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.